Hello, everybody. This is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of Female Empowerment. On Wednesday, we have an empowerment show where I actually invite women to talk about some of the triggers that have actually enabled them to become even more empowered than they were before. So today we've got another woman who will be sharing her journey with us. And as you guys know, this actually stemmed from International Women's Month or Day that I began to continue the empowerment show because I feel it is important for the world to remember as women, we are also empowered, and without women, there is nothing. So we have to celebrate ourselves and remind society that we need to be celebrated, because too often we are forgotten and we take it for granted. And especially women who are at home, who would be, doing the home duty, etc. It is seen as, oh, well, she's only at home. No, she's not only at home. I would never do the at-home business because it's a lot, and some of them are doing the triple shift. They're actually at home, providing the emotional support and providing the work outside. So that's what we call triple shift. They're doing all three of them, and they're doing all three of them extremely well. And they're not even acknowledged for that. Welcome, 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 Yvonne. Thank you very much for accepting the offer to come and to share your journey with us.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself and tell us where you come from. Tell us what empowers you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here, excited. I'm very much a feminist and all about gender equality. So this really speaks to my values. In terms of where I'm from, hopefully you can gauge from my accent. I'm from the UK. I live in Hertfordshire, not far from London. Did you ask what I do, or did I make that up?
Yeah.
What I do. I wear quite a number of hats. So in terms of my day job, full-time job, I've been working in the field of equalities, equity, diversity and inclusion for about over 20 years. I've been doing that in local government. But I also do some national work around tackling racial inequality. I also, part-time, I work as a holistic nutritionist coach, which I'm really passionate about. And it's really, in doing that, I support women in terms of getting that holistic lifestyle in terms of nutrition, but also the mindset and the habits that may prevent them from being the healthiest version of themselves. I do a bit of volunteering as well for my local food pantry, but also other things I'm passionate about, like women's empowerment, that sort of thing, that angle. I also model part-time, so I'm a busy woman. I think a lot of women can resonate. We wear so many hats and juggle so much, but I think the most important job is being a mum. I have a son, 14 years old. So yeah, quite a few hats.
Yes, thank you, thank you. This is just us as women. Yeah. And people don't realize, or if they do, they just take it for granted and just think, oh, well, just get on with it. But they don't realize how much all of this take and how much, we have to give of ourselves all the time. So it's wonderful because we do a lot of stuff. And sadly, we are not recognized for not even half of it.
Yeah.
It's like taken for granted. You say that you actually work as an inclusion officer. What does that mean?
It's really around, so I think most of us are aware, unfortunately, we don't live in a world that's very equitable. There's so many inequalities in society. If you look at the main areas in society, so employment, in education, in housing, in health, we saw like COVID, the disproportionate impact on mainly Black and Asian communities. So the work I do is really around supporting the borough I work in to tackle those inequalities that exist, but also in the workplace. There's so much, unfortunately, in the workplace, there's so much inequality as well. So it's also looking at inequalities that staff are facing, but also inequalities that residents and communities are facing, and looking at how we can address those, because unfortunately, we're not quite where we want to be in this world. We are making steps. but there's still a lot more to be done. So that's the field I've been working for quite a while. I'm really passionate about, and yeah, blessed to be doing it.
Thank you very much. So as part of your job, how do you think that you could empower women who are feeling disempowered, either through as a result of employment or, not being able to, be supported in employment or in the home, etc.? How can you, either through your job or through some of the other things you do, how can you empower women?
Yeah, I think at work, so I chair, we have a women's network. So that's one of the first things I did when I joined the organization. So I chair our women's network. And it was just finding out, it's speaking to women, because there's nothing like an individual telling you what issues, barriers, challenges they're facing. So just found out from women, like, what issues, barriers, challenges are you facing in the workplace? And then as the organization is working to address those, so working with senior leaders to address those. So not surprisingly, a lot of them are around career progression. There's still not enough senior leaders if you look at just the boardroom, there's not enough female leaders in the boardroom. I think there's now targets to meet those. We're not quite there yet. But even when we do have senior leaders, it's not representative enough. Majority tend to be white women, for example. So we don't have enough Black, Asian women or disabled women. So it's looking at how we can support women into those senior leadership positions. And women's health, I know there's been a lot of focus finally around women's health, because unfortunately, when we look at health, it's mainly been undertaken by white men. The focus has been on men's health issues. So the government only just published the women's health strategy. For the first time, we're focusing on women's health issues. But in the workplace, you'll find that's quite a number of women leave the workplace because they don't get that support from their managers, or it just becomes too difficult. So even things like menopause, and women are getting older, or a lot of reproductive issues like menstrual, painful menstrual symptoms. I mean, the list is endless. Fibromyalgia, I can never pronounce it. But a lot of those conditions where endometriosis, where women are just in so much pain. I think there's lack of education and awareness, understanding, and they are debilitating, and they do really affect one's performance at work. There's days when one may feel more tired or fatigued, and are there flexible options available where they could, start later? Flexible working is an issue. I already said I wear so many hats, but it's that work-life balance, especially when you're juggling motherhood and work. Some women are also caring for not just a child, but maybe a family member, an older family member, or so it's juggling that, those responsibilities, and are you getting the support to do that? Maybe having flexible working options, that sort of thing. Gender pay gap, that's an issue. We know that unfortunately women still aren't getting paid the same as men. That also affects pension later on in life. There's so many issues. So it's really looking at developing policies, because I don't think anything gets done unless the organization says this is our policy. But again, it's ensuring we're implementing the policies consistently. It's raising awareness of the issues. It's training managers so they can better support their staff. And it's making like senior leaders aware of the issues happening, because, it's giving women a voice, so women feel I can actually share what I'm going through. I'm being listened to, I'm being heard, and the organization is taking steps to address the issues. We lose so much talent. Women end up leaving, and it's just not right. With women coming back to work from maternity leave, some have to come back part-time, some just don't come back at all because there isn't that support mechanism. So yeah, and it's really, and I guess it's empowering women to, as I said, have a voice via women's networks or etc., and actually say what the issues are, but also listening. I think you feel empowered if you're listened and heard, and you can make a difference and having more women in those leadership positions where they can speak up. I think that's one way to certainly empower women.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's really interesting because something you've said, which, seems to be coming up on all my Wednesday shows regarding women and the monthly cycle. And it's a situation where they're not being heard, because I remember, years ago when I was really, always every month, everybody knew that something was wrong, because every month, yes, clockwork, they know she's taking time off. And, because I was in education, it was flexible, but not everybody had that flexibility. And even some women that are going through the menopause right now, they don't feel empowered enough to talk about it, to say, well, this is what's happening, because there is not enough being shared. And I think that's one of the biggest things, because women don't feel empowered enough to talk about it, because they feel embarrassed to talk about it, because nobody really seems to A, know what she's talking about, or choose not to know what she's talking about, B, actually give her that voice that she feels comfortable to discuss. Well, look, I'm going through this process, I might need to leave the door open a little bit more, I might be feeling, moody, etc., etc. So there's no room for that. And that for me is quite sad, because even within education, you have the situation where if a child has ADHD and the child is saying, well, look, I need to take 2 minutes out of the classroom to go out and have fresh air. We give them that opportunity to do that. But yes, when women feel a way to say, well, oh, I need to, I'm really feeling really hot or whatever, I need to take a few minutes, without feeling guilty. And I think that's quite sad.
I agree. I think there's a lot around, there's still a like stigma and taboo. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is workplace culture. So God forbid you work somewhere that's really like a male-dominated workplace. But even where it's quite like public sector, majority of staff happen to be women in most organizations, but there's still that stigma, taboo, it's not spoken about. And some cultures, they laugh about it. Oh, is it your time of the month? Or, that sort of thing. And that's just not, like, it becomes banter, and it shouldn't be. I think women should be given the opportunity to say, like, as you said, time off. It's different for different people. Sometimes some women have very heavy, like, periods. Do you have period products in your toilets? In terms of menopause, it's just looking at flexible working options. If people have nights where they've barely slept, can they start later on in the day? It's actually talking about these issues, not just amongst the men, but also to women as well, because not every woman is aware of the various symptoms and how it may impact on one's performance at work and that sort of thing. So I think it's really, as you said, making spaces where women can talk about these issues, but also looking at what support can be available. It's training managers so they know how to better support their staff. And you end up retaining your female staff as well and not losing them. And there'll be less sickness, etc., if you just make it easier for people to A, have the conversations, and B, get the support they need in the workplace, because these things aren't going anywhere. We're getting older, so you'll have more women with menopausal symptoms, etc. And it's natural, right? So every woman will have a period, and eventually that will stop. So organizations just need to learn how to deal with it better.
Thank you. I so agree with you there. But what was interesting, I'm not too sure, I suppose I see this as slightly way forward, because I left education 6 years prior. I've been back now probably about 3 years. And it's interesting that when I left, they did not have women, sanitary pads in toilets. Now I see it in all workplace, I've worked in a number of schools, and now I sit in the toilets and I'm thinking, oh, this is nice, because before you would have to be paying for those, and now it's there. And, there seems to have, like a sanitary station, which is really good. And it's also in terms of the female students, you know, I think that is quite nice because it makes them feel comfortable that they don't have to be going and ask anybody for it. Because as we know, that could be very disempowering for young women, that they have to go to the medical room and ask someone for this, because some of them are still shy and some of them are still embarrassed, etc. So the fact that they have these stations in, you know, in all the schools I've been in, I've worked in a lot of schools in the last 3 years, it's really a way forward, I feel, because it removes the stigma and it reduces the embarrassment of these young women, that they don't have to ask anybody. They're just going there, oh, miss, can I go to, yes, that's fine, go to the store. And, you know, that is fine. Whereas before, they'll be having to ask, quietly ask one of the friends or even ask me sometimes. So I think that is a way forward. And I just think, yes, it's not yet enough, but it's the start. And when coming in terms of discussing, you know, women health issues like the menopause, etc., I feel that is still not being discussed.
Yes, I agree. I think with the period product, it's kind of normalizes it because it's, I mean,
exactly,
it's a normal part of life, right?
Yeah,
But I think the other thing with having the free products, period poverty. So not everyone can afford those products. So if we make them available for children, whether it's young girls, young women, even in those who work, cost of living, etc. There's some individuals that unfortunately can't actually afford the product. So one thing is supporting those who perhaps can't afford them, but you know, some of us have accidents where, you know, you haven't planned, your period comes on, it can be quite embarrassing. And as I said, for some, whether you have fibroids or endometriosis, etc., where you can get really heavy periods and have accidents due to that, again, you can go and use a product. So I think it's just a great way to being inclusive in terms of, as I mentioned, cost, but also if you have situations where you're caught unaware, then at least, you know, the products are available for you. And yeah, as you said, it can be really embarrassing, especially in schools, I can imagine. So it takes that embarrassment away, but it also just makes it normal. We all menstruate, there's products in the toilet should you need them. I think it's brilliant. But yeah, with menopause, I think we're starting the journey, but it will take a while. But it's really good to see, you know, have a menopause champion in the government, and workplaces have signed up to that menopause workforce pledge, and there's menopause policies, there's training around the menopause. Because again, I think there's not enough education. Most people, I used to actually think it's just hot flushes, but there's so many symptoms and they can really affect an individual, whether that's mentally, can affect mental health, physically. It's really far reaching, and I think it's only fair that we, you know, support women that are going through it.
I totally agree with that. I just feel, as I said, there isn't enough discussion around that. And I don't think that the discussion is openly either. It's, you know, it's still pockets, but yet still it's not inclusive, that it is normal to talk about, you know, because it's like doing a session on that in my lesson it's got to be a plan lesson. It's not just spoken about like that. And the sad thing about it is the students are not even aware of it because that have not been discussed. And even when, you know, talking to them, because today I teach sociology as well as psychology. And today I had a session and I was saying to them, you know, we have an aging population. And I say, Miss, what's this? What's that? And it's like, I took it for granted that when we talk about aging population, the students would be aware of it, but it just shows how isolated they are, that they don't understand what this is about, because aging is not really spoken about and it's not really embraced. You know, it's so interesting because I was even saying to the students last week, I say, you know, it's like when I get on the train, sometimes I'm seeing people saying to me, oh, do you want a seat? Before I used to say, no. And I'm thinking, look, my backpack is heavy with marking to do. Of course, I'm taking the seat, right? So yeah. It's interesting that how, you know, aging is seen and how, you know, how we are seen as women.
That's so true. I think our mothers, again, A lot of it, like my mum didn't talk to me about menopause, or even when I started my period, I think she got me a book as opposed to talking about it. So I don't think we speak about it at home with our mothers, aunties, etc. So it's not surprising. But yeah, I'd say certainly aging. I think in this day and age, like older women, we're not celebrated. And everyone wants to prevent aging with all this Botox, and everyone wants to look young, feel young. Older women aren't celebrated, I don't think, which we should be. So I think that's another issue as well in terms of ageism and older women and issues that affect older women, whether that's in the workplace, the beauty industry, you know, how many older models do we see? And how many older women are celebrated just for being them and all the achievements that they've had in their lives, etc. Yes, I do think it's very much focused on 40 and younger. Even in the workplace, we're trying to get more older workforce to come back to, because there's so many skills. But again, yeah, I think age discrimination is definitely a thing. And then if you're an older woman as well, you have that double age discrimination. Older Black woman, just add to it, and yeah, there we go. Very underrepresented in terms of their voices, but just even in the media and society and certain industries as well.
It is so very true. But you see, when we talk about ageism, we're also dealing with a consumer culture, because the consumer culture is saying to us that, you have to constantly compete to look young, because that's what the consumer culture is telling us. And it is sad that, when women are 40 and over, it's a situation where they're seen as old, but failing to realize that we are now living in an aging society. So which means that, we're talking about retiring at age 67. So it should no longer be seen as old. It should be seen as that's the prime years, because retiring at age 67, what this is saying to us, that the prime years is between, 50 plus, because under that isn't. So is women becoming empowered enough and confident enough to embrace that and feel, okay, I am this. So therefore, there are a lot of experience that come with it.
I agree. And I don't think men are viewed in the same way. Because apparently, men, whether it's the midlife crisis, menopause, whatever, men aren't viewed in the same way. I think it's all this judgment or expectations on women to look beautiful and be a certain way, and once you reach a certain age, you're no longer attractive. I mean, who dictates what what age you stop being attractive, or whatever the case may be? And it's this fixation we see now. And unfortunately, a lot of this, I mean, look at Madonna recently. Oh dear, they do so much work. It's like, why are you trying to prevent the inevitable in terms of just growing older gracefully and embracing that and feeling empowered? There are some individuals that do it spectacularly well, which is brilliant. But unfortunately, in today's society, girls in their 20s getting Botox injections, etc. It's very sad to see young women who aren't just embracing growing older. And then what message does it send to the younger ones as well? I think it really has that knock-on effect. But it's really good to see like older role models. And I agree, we are living longer, so yeah, it really needs to be addressed. I think society has so much to answer to in relation to that.
You see, the knock-on effect of that is, because society is telling us women that they need to look a certain way, it also leads to disempowerment of women, because it's like they no longer have the power, because they're looking for validation from social media and everything else, because it is saying that, however you are not growing gracefully. You need to use this cream to remove this wrinkle. You need to use this in order to make sure that, the laugh lines or whatever is no longer there. So it's like society is constantly pressurizing women. So in terms of them becoming empowered, I feel in a lot of cases, they begin to feel disempowered, because then they begin to feel that they're not good enough. And they fit into this box of, I'm not good enough, so therefore X, I'm not good enough, so therefore Y. And there's so many answers are coming through. Because even when you look at young people, because I teach year 12 and 13. And it's like, when you look at them, it's like, oh, well, Miss, X wrong with me, Y wrong. I said, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You not need to just embrace you. But because they're so connected to social media, and he's saying to them that they have to have the model image, because they have not taken on model image as being anybody. And it's beautiful that when you say that you're a model, because I've got a friend of mine who is 60, I think she's 65 or 64. Anyway, I have, she's a model, and I've got other friends that are in the 50s are models, and in the 40s. It's just so wonderful to see all the women becoming models, and they're no longer looking at, society is no longer so much looking at, okay, you have to be the stick size and you have to have this set of look, etc., to become a model. Because I think it disempowered women, because some women who want to become models and have always dreamed of becoming a model, they were prevented from doing that when they were younger, because they were told that they did not have the criteria that was necessary, which was the size, size 6 or whatever it is. And those disempower women, it doesn't make them feel that they're good enough.
Yeah, 100% agree. I remember where the ideal of beauty, well, unfortunately, we still have a European ideal of beauty, but it used to be like Marilyn Monroe and Sophia Loren, who have more fuller, curvy figures, and then it just kept going smaller and smaller. Then you had like the Kate Mosses and these size 0 supermodels. I think one of the reasons I went back into modeling, because I'd played around with it, not really taking it seriously, I was just thinking, I can't see any models that look like me. There's not enough Black models, there's not enough older models. I'm more of a curvy, athletic shape. You don't see enough of that. So it's really like, if I can't see it, let me be it, sort of thing. Because it's one of those things, and I'm really careful about the brands I would work with as well. I think they need to reflect my values, etc., in terms of representation. Do they believe in diversity and inclusion, and not just in terms of the models they use, but who's sitting on the boards, who's making those decisions as well. So I work with organization models of diversity who work around inclusion in the industry. I'm an ambassador for them. And it's really around, we want to see more Black and Asian models. We want to see more older models, more that represent real women. It's really about that, because it sends such a strong message, not just to the younger women, but when you see someone that looks like you, like, oh, wow, I want to go buy that top. Or it's really empowering. We're getting there. We're starting to see more Black models and Black darker skin models, because I think before they'd use more lighter skinned or mixed heritage, and we see more natural hair. It's not just the straight hair and the weaves. We're seeing models with their afros, and a few more bald models. It's disabled. It really needs to be more representative, and I think that will help with the younger women, because it's so sad. Most of the pictures are edited anyway, but if you don't see someone that looks like you in that ideal of beauty, then it really will. I remember when Disney, was it Little Mermaid or something, and there was all this, like, really, it's, I think when people are so used to see themselves represented, and then, like, the world doesn't just have, we're in a multicultural world, and I think a lot of industries really need to get on board, for want of a better word.
I so agree with that, in terms of, what they see, that's what they'll be. And I think it's important that they begin to see people that look like them. And it should be across the board, because even now in teaching, you would think, oh yes, they would have a lot of, multicultural teachers, etc. But sadly, there's sometimes I'm going to school and I'm the only one in there and I'm thinking, oh, really? This is the 21st century, you know? And I've been in a number of schools that I'm thinking, whoa, really? You know, so it's kind of a sad, and for students that most schools are very mixed and they don't reflect the children. So therefore, as a result of that, you cannot have empowered young women if they cannot see someone that looks like them, that will enable them to feel empowered. And that's one of the things, you know, we always have to be champion and reminding them that in order for these students, these young people to start feeling empowered and start being themselves and valuing themselves, they need to see people that reflect them, that they could actually see as models. And I'm not too sure why people have not connected with that, because they're quick to say, oh, look, this child is, you know, is not performing, da, 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 da. Okay, I understand that. But some people, some young people need to see people that they could connect with, which would enable them to feel empowered.
Yeah, 100%. We need those role models. If you don't see, like in a school and you've only got one Black teacher, are you thinking, oh, is it because Black people aren't good enough to teach? Or we really do need, and that's why I think like the Saturday supplementary schools are really important, because it's not only reflecting the curriculum that they're not getting in school, but majority have Black teachers, and it's really important for children to see that. It's really sad to see, because even in the workplace, London is so diverse, but majority of workplaces don't reflect the population. Or you'll find majority of Black, Asian, multi-ethnic staff are in those lower positions. I think people call it like the Guinness effect. At the top is like white, and then, you know, the rest is Black. So yeah, it's really saddening to see in terms of representation of the workforce representing the community, that sort of thing, especially at higher levels. But I agree, it really is from education onwards. If you're not seeing it, whether it's in a magazine, on TV, in your school, in the workplace, it really does have that. And if you want to achieve, there's a saying, you can't be what you can't see, which again is why I said one of the reasons I went into like doing modeling, because yeah, like if you can't do it, if you can't be it, you can't see it. Or sorry, it's the other way around. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's so important to have those, and not having all role models that are like in sports or music. They need to see that female doctor, or not the stereotypical gender stereotypical roles. I think it's really important, and have them from different races, ages, etc. You know, because we don't all just sing or good at sports. When I'm looking at Black, I'll speak from a Black experience, of course, being a Black woman. It's really important that they see individuals from across professions, from different, you know, sexes, disabled and ages, etc., which actually reflect the world we live in, and not reinforcing those stereotypes as well.
I so agree with you there. You know, as I said, in teaching, one would expect it to be so much diverse. And one of the sad things I have a lot of the time when I go in some schools, the question I'm always asked is, Miss, have you got a degree? And I often say no, because I said, do you ask the other teachers the same question? And this is, you know, there's sometimes very, very frustrating, because I am constantly asked that question. And then I'm saying to them, I don't only have this, I have this, and I have this. Oh, Miss, okay. And I just think it's sad that we are constantly having to remind people what we've got, because many of the times I say, did you ask this teacher? No, I'm sure you didn't. So why do you feel you need to ask me? And it's quite sad, because one would not expect that in the 21st century, but I've got news for you guys. That is happening right now. You know,
that's incredibly sad, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course
it
is.
You're having to justify, and that brings me into the whole thing of merit. Like, some would say, oh, you only got it because you're a Black woman or trying to fill a quota. Yeah. But no, you got it through merit, because
exactly.
Yeah, and that's well, that's a topic for another day. But I agree. I think when you don't see enough of people in those positions, and you question again whether there is enough talent out there, which we know there is, but it's how individuals are getting recruited or not, and the unconscious bias and the systems and etc. that unfortunately we still need to work on a lot in terms of the systems and processes that just aren't right.
Yeah, well, it really is kind of sad when, when you go to schools, etc., and you still ask this question. And I'm saying, but, how do you think that I managed to become a teacher? And I've been teaching for a number of years. So it's quite sad that in the 21st century that children are asking you those questions. And another question is, oh, are you from here? And the same usual kind of question. And I said to a student yesterday, I said, you remember the Queen assistant who asked the woman, was she from here? I said, you remember what happened to her, right? So it's like this constant questions, but you see, it's like how these young people have been conditioned, and these questions become normalized that it is okay. So why do you need to know where this person is from? Does it matter? I personally don't feel it matters,
I agree. It's microaggressions, isn't it? We finally have a term for it. But yeah, the where are you from, where you really from, and yeah, it's all this othering people all the time and thinking that, I think essentially it's that the person isn't good enough. Like, where are you from? You shouldn't be in this country, or it's all underlying. But yeah, those are microaggressions, and it's really sad that at that age they have that. But I think you're right, they are conditioned, whether it's by family, by television, the media, the news. They have such a huge role to play in this conditioning and brainwashing, and giving people forming these stereotypes and assumptions and myths that we get in society about certain groups. It is really sad.
Especially this day and age, because my answer to students all the time, how is it connected with my lesson?
Exactly.
Because I don't see the connection. If you could show me the connection, that's fine, but I don't see the connection. But the sad thing about it, that seems to be such an important question that they always need to ask.
It's very sad. It's very, and as you say, they wouldn't ask a white teacher. I mean, they might in some cases, but I think it's very rare. But again, I think it reflects society. Unfortunately, those kind of questions reflect the society we live in, and the fact that they think it's okay. I love how you challenge them and you say, well, you wouldn't ask another teacher, or what's it got? It's not a lesson on history. If it was that's different. But yeah, what's that? I think it's understanding the context behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In these cases, yeah, it's really sad to see.
Yeah.
Really sad to see.
Thank you. How do you think women, let's say if a woman wants to be employed in a male sector, for example, in some areas, predominantly women's, for example, if a woman wants to go into carpentry, etc., how do you think that she would be empowered to get there?
I think you really have to have this like radical self-belief, because I think it's knowing you're in this male-dominated area. Unfortunately, that they would probably have to prove themselves quite a lot. But I think it's knowing that, you've studied it, you have the skill set, and just letting your work speak for itself, I would say, to the point where they think, okay, wow, she really is talented or knowledgeable or whatever the case may be. I think that would have to be the attitude. They probably have to be quite thick-skinned, because I can imagine some of the inappropriate comments that might be made or etc. But I think they would just need to try and be like water off a duck's back, and just remember, acknowledge that you are good enough, and that's why you're there. You've done the same qualification or whatever the case may be, so it's no different to anyone else that might be working alongside them. And I think that's what they would need to remember. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. You were talking about, some of the barriers. What do you think, you are observing that are some of the barriers that preventing women from A, becoming empowered, B, from actually going for what they want to get, in terms of breaking through that glass ceiling? What do you think are some of the barriers?
I think some of it is actually falls down to, because I don't know if you can see my top, it's got self-love. I just wanted to remind myself. A lot of it is to do with self, whether it's self-confidence, self-esteem, self-belief. I know there's that research that shows if you're looking at a job description, men would think, oh, I'll meet 80% of it and apply for the role. But women, once they reach like 60%, they wouldn't apply for it. So a lot of it is just having that self-belief in yourself that you can do it, you are enough, and putting yourself forward. I think women sometimes, we're really good at talking ourselves out of things. We have this fear or that imposter syndrome. There's so many issues where we could go for something and we don't. So I think it's just, feel the fear and do it anyway. But again, it's having that self-confidence and self-belief. So I think sometimes we ourselves are barriers to doing that. But also, in the same breath, is pushing yourself forward, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. So if there's opportunities in the workplace, whether it's a training course or the manager says there's an opportunity to manage a particular project, like put your hand up, do it, because that's the only way, you'll be seen more. If there's opportunities there, grab them by both hands, because they don't come along every day. So put your name in the hat, because by being that wallflower, you won't be seen. Where there's opportunity to speak up, take advantage of it. Put yourself forward for, it might be a really small opportunity, like leading, like for example, a women's network, but by doing that, you're a leader. You don't recognize you're representing, you're being a voice of female staff across the organization. You have to share this with senior leaders, etc. So there's various ways you can lead and gain that experience. So I think it's also looking for those opportunities. It's also networking. Women aren't great at networking. I think men are better, especially Black women. Again, I'll keep referencing Black women because I'm talking from my lived experience. We're not that great at networking, but networking opens so many opportunities as well. So network more, find out what jobs exist, put yourself forward, have that self-belief, and I think it's a lot of that, and that negative self-talk we give ourselves is having also like friends and family. We need that tribe that can say, yeah, go on, do it. I'll be like, Debbie, I've seen this job. Can I share my, can I practice an interview question with you? Can I share my job statement for you to look at it? We're so great. We have these friendships to utilize those skills we have with, networking skills, and actually using them to our advantage. To say there's certain skills women have, but maybe it's actually using them to our advantage. So I'd say it's a number of things that we can do just to help ourselves get to that next step. We are aware, of course, we've spoken about some of those barriers, but there are ways around it. If only perhaps we believed in ourselves more, put ourselves forward. I think there's ways we can also advocate for ourselves, want for a better word.
Thank you. You say Black women are not very good in networking. Why do you think that is so?
I don't know. Maybe because it's a cultural thing. In terms of like Black and Asian women, when we have networking events, it's not. We tend to do more with our friendship groups, for example, for want of a better word. But when it's going outside of your friendship group, like if there's a networking event for equalities professionals or something, do we really put ourselves in those? When I say networking, I'm talking about like professional networks, for example. So I think we need to do that more. It doesn't necessarily even have to be in person. Now we live in this digital world, so much is online. Get yourself on LinkedIn or there's various, depending what field you are, there's so many different forums. You even have your support group. Join your support group. There's so many ways you can network, whether that's professionally or areas of work, things outside of work that you're interested in as well. You just never know when something comes up and someone might say, oh yes, I remember meeting so and so. Yeah, can I recommend her for whatever the case may be? Even if you're self-employed, if you're like a caterer or something, go to the event, hand out your cards, people start recommending you, and before you know it, you're slowly building your client base. I think it's just putting ourselves out there more outside of our usual circles, and you do start reaping those rewards. Yeah, men are great at doing it. They'll make deals at the golf course or in the pub or whatever the case may be. We just need to expand our networks more, and we're great at talking. We'll talk to our friends, and so you have the skill set, just use them in different situations to your advantage.
Thank you. It's interesting though, because I also think that could also be a degree of fear, or women feel that they're not good enough because they've always been, they've always been put down. So as a result of that, they internalize it and it becomes their reality. And unconsciously, they're giving those messages out without even realizing that they're doing it because of how society have actually programmed women.
I agree.
I think that's a really thing. And some of the things I do with women is doing mirror work, because some women have not looked in the mirror and tell themselves that they're beautiful. I say that to all my students. When I walk into a new school, one of the things I would spend the first lesson let's say if I have 4 lessons for that day, that I'm not teaching, the 4 lessons, different groups, I'm telling the same thing. Look in the mirror and remind yourself of your beauty. When you go down the road, you see there's all these windows, etc. Look at yourself and say, oh my goodness, I'm hot. It's like, those are all the things I'm telling, because that's normally whether or not it's a 2-hour lesson, a 1-hour lesson, that's what I spend the time doing. Empowering them, and some of them have never been told that they're good enough. I remember I had a group, it was a year 10 group, so there's about 13, 14, and I was going through the same process and telling them that sometimes the parents could be very negative to them, but remind themselves that they're good, etc. And one student just burst out crying because nobody have told that student that she was good enough and that she's beautiful and she's loved. And it's like, I was so shocked. We're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But it's like, and then when she actually was talking about it, she said, nobody have ever told her that. All she's always got from her family was all the negative. And it's quite sad, because I'm not too sure if adults realize the impact that is having on those young people. It's detrimental.
I agree. A lot of it, actually, when you asked your previous questions, some of it can stem from childhood, that childhood trauma, when you actually been told you're not attractive, or look at your hair, or whatever the case may be, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And even in terms of bullying, because in a school I worked in September to December, I had, I was covering a lesson. Actually, it was an English lesson I was covering. And the topic was something about bullying. And I decided to use that opportunity to start empowering, etc. And one student came up to me after, and she said to me, she understands. That's the whole situation. One student I asked students to read. I'm classical. I'm saying to students, I want you guys to read. And remember, if someone is not pronouncing it properly, no need to laugh. That's disrespecting, because we all pronounce differently. So this student started to read, and halfway through, she did not, she was making mistakes, but it didn't really matter. And someone laughed. Oh my goodness, I saw stars. I sent that student right out. And later on, the deputy principal was walking on the corridor, and then she said to him, she asked the child why the child was outside. The child said, she don't know. Anyway, so then I said she was outside because she was laughing at someone while they were reading. I think that was disrespectful. So the interesting thing is that head teacher said, okay, you go back inside the same way you embarrass that student in front of everybody, apologize in front of the whole class. And I thought that was so good, because that student stayed after, the student that, she had laughed at, and she said to me, Miss, people always laughed at me, and it was so good that you did not allow it to happen. She said, because it really does make you feel so horrible and uncomfortable. I was choked, because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, because that student have been bullied because this student was now I think year 8 or year 10, and that student was bullied all through secondary school. And that student began to start having a voice, and then someone wanted to laugh. So it really is sad in terms of empowerment, how these things affect them. So we need to know that in order to grow these young people to be empowered beings, we need to make sure that we're very conscious of what is being done to them and what is being said to them.
That's so true. We need more teachers like you, because schools play such an important role.
Yeah.
They really do. If only we had more teachers like you. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're up against a lot, because there's sometimes, some schools don't take me because of my, my not fitting in the box, etc. Because there's sometimes I would come and, because I was interviewed for a job, I didn't get it because I did not fit into the box, etc., etc.
Oh.
But I think it's so important that we are very conscious as adults how we are dealing with these young people, because a mere mark of saying to them, oh, your hair is X, which is a negative, that young person take it on because they internalize it very differently from what was said.
Yeah. I recently just did at work, we had a session on hair, we called it Here We Go Again, where we looked at hair discrimination and views around Afro hair, and as part of that, I looked at young people and schools. It's astonishing the amount of young people and the school policies, that uniform policy or hair code or whatever the case may be, that are impacting a lot of Afro-Caribbean, mainly Afro-Caribbean and mixed heritage children, because of if they have natural hairstyles, etc., but also like Asians who may cover, etc. And I know thankfully a lot of these have gone to court by the Equality Human Rights Commission, but it's very sad to see how some of these policies indirectly discriminate against our children, both male and female, because their hairstyles are deemed to be breaking the rules or whatever the case may be. But even sadder to see that in some workplaces, the same things happen. So I think there's this halo code, which is around celebrating the different hair textures and hairstyles, but also ensuring schools and employers don't indirectly discriminate by the policies or whatever that they have in place. But you're so right. It's like a lot of the research that said X% of children wanted straight hair, and a lot of this really starts from that age, and then you wonder why people have really low self-belief or lack of pride in their culture or heritage or whatever the case may be. It's very sad to see, but I think we have a lot to answer for, whether it's society has a lot to answer for in what we're indirectly telling people to make them believe certain things about themselves. It's very sad to see.
It is so very true in terms of the hair. I'm in a school that this is the second school I've been in where, the students wear their hair anyhow. It's like the big afro, the natural, it's just really nice. And even the assistant principal, I said to her this morning, I said, oh my goodness, I love the hair, she just have the natural hair, sometimes she just have it just plaited or just out, etc. Because she said, at one time she used to pump it and she realized, no, I don't want any of these chemicals. So she's just letting it not grow naturally. And it's beautiful because the children now are beginning to embrace it. And I constantly comment on that because it is so lovely to see. And I'm saying to them, oh my goodness, I love your hair. Thank you, miss. It's just really nice empowering them to make them know it is okay to be like this. You don't have to be like everybody else in terms of, you know, the long extension. You could have your hair natural and it's beautiful, just like if it had the extension. And I think it is so important that we remind the young people of the beauty, because that empower them to be something else, to be positive, to have a growth mindset instead of feeling I'm ugly, because society have told them enough times that they're ugly.
Yeah, 100%, because it is part of your identity. Some of it is linked to culture, to heritage. It's part and parcel of who an individual is, you know. So it's so important, and I think that's essentially what this Halo Code is about. It's about recognizing it's not just a hairstyle. Some of this is linked to cultural identity, things that have been passed on. And it's just recognizing that, and as you said, it's beautiful. So I think it's great because it gives people, young people, that confidence, and yeah, you know, celebrating who they are, and that, whether it's hair or body image or whatever the case may be. And I think it does transcend irrespective of age, because I think even with older women, or for example, or even middle age or whatever the case may be, it's really just accepting who you are, flaws and all, and just, you know, perfectly imperfect, and just loving everything about you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. What 3 tips would you give women to enable them to continue to empower themselves?
I'd say having that, again, I'm going to go back to the believing in yourself, telling yourself, like, I'm enough. You don't have to, social media, all these images and etc. that we see, you're who you are. And I think it's just loving yourself, every inch of yourself, right from your head to your toes. And that's fine, perfectly imperfect. You may have the cellulite, you may, whatever the case may be. I think it's just having that radical self-belief, not just in how we look, but also in our abilities and skills, whether that's in the workplace, whatever the case may be. What's the other tip I would have? I think it's really important to have that support system, like have your tribe, so to speak. I was watching something the other day. It was around relationships and how relationships have evolved in time. And they said it's not actually a relationship with your husband or partner. It's actually the friendships are the most important thing women have. Because of course you can be with your partner for X amount of years and things may not work out. But if you have that really good friend that you could have had for 50 years, whatever the case may be, and when things go wrong with your partner, who are you going to run and, you know, talk to, that sort of thing. So we all need them. So it's having those friendships that you can turn to, you know, for difficult times, but also celebrating. There's good times you'll have, there's bad times you have. It's having that tribe of women that can support you and go to for advice. It's having that support system that's really important, like your sisterhood. I think we all need that. We're social creatures after all. We're not meant to be alone. So I think it's really important to have that. And I had the self-love. I think looking after, we started up by saying we wear so many hats. It's so important to look after yourself. So I have to say that, of course, as a holistic nutrition coach. So in terms of not just your nutrition, but also your mindset, take time out, whether it's mindfulness or yoga, we all need to decompress and just take time out for yourself. Have that hot bath or whatever the case may be. I think self-care is so important, whether it's I'm really into fitness. It could just be movement. You don't have to necessarily join a gym. Go for a walk in nature, do some stretches, whether it's running, cycling, swimming, whatever the case may be. Just make time for you, whatever your hobby is, reading, traveling. We all really need that for our own mental health and well-being. I think all of that is really important. So yeah, look after you, because no one else is going to do it for you, are they? You can't pour from an empty cup. So yeah, I'd say looking after ourselves is also equally as important.
Thank you. That's so very true, because especially self-love and self-care, that's two areas I'm really hot on. There's sometimes, yes, you might forget a little, but as much as possible, you need to remember, especially if you're doing jobs that you are giving off to people, because especially in the field that we in, it's like you're constantly giving. And then you stop and thinking, hold on, so what's about me here? And something I remind women to do as well, you need to buy yourself a gift every week, And when I say buy a gift, it doesn't have to cost a lot. It could be something that costs £2. You say, well, this is for me. I'm buying it for me. It's like I buy myself flowers I used to buy it every week until I have a student who buys me flowers every other week. The student buy me flowers. She feel that, it's an ex-student. She feel that I deserve flowers every other week. So, when she don't buy me, I buy myself flowers every week. I think it's so important that you gift yourself. The same way when, we start relationships, when we're courting, etc., we're younger, we want to buy this person X, Y, Z. But hold on. So what about buying it for you? It's important that you buy it for yourself too. So when it comes to self-love and self-care, I'm really hot on that, because I think you need to buy yourself gifts. It doesn't matter the price. Spend time with you, as you rightly say, walk in nature. You just go to the park and just run around the park, just doing those things. Just, taking your shoes off and feeling grounded in the soil. It's so important, the minute you take your shoes off and you actually put your feet on the ground, on the soil, it's grounding yourself. The energy from the earth actually goes through you, it's like grounding. And yes, it's cold outside, but you're not staying long, you're not putting your feet on the ground for too long, just a few minutes and you're done, because you're grounded. It is so very important that we do those things. And those are things that don't cost much. It's just saying that this is my time, that I'm going to use it for me.
And like L'Oreal says, we're worth it. We are worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. The same way you think this, your partner, your husband, etc., is what you giving him the time, or buying him or her the gift. Buy yourself the thing too, because they're not going to remember. They might remember the Valentine time, the birthday time, etc. You can't wait for that. You should be celebrating yourself every day.
We should. Yeah. I have a friend that I think used to, like, sometimes just take herself out for dinner.
Yeah.
Or, so now I see like solo travels becoming quite popular. Just do things for you. We only have one life.
Exactly.
And it's really important.
Yeah. Or just take yourself to the cinema. Take yourself to the theater. I used to do a lot of those, but I don't do as much as it now. Take yourself to the cinema, take yourself to the theater. Just take yourself. When someone say, you and who? What do you mean, me and who? Me and me. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, start enjoying your company, because sadly a lot of women, especially women here, they don't like their company. They feel like there's something wrong if they go somewhere by themselves. No, it means that you are having peace with you and reflecting you.
I actually think there's nothing more empowering than enjoying your own company, and you don't necessarily, again, I know I advocated for having, your tribe and your friendship, but equally it's so empowering just to, I don't need anyone. I'm okay. I can just do that by myself.
Exactly. Just doing you, and just remind yourself, of doing you. And it doesn't matter if someone say, oh, you're here by yourself. Just keep on reminding yourself, I'm loving my company. The more you say, the more it becomes your reality. Right, the more you say. I remember years ago when I used to go to dances by myself, and people say, oh yeah, you go and dance it. You have the men negative. Oh, you go and dance it because you want to find somebody. No. I don't want to find anybody, because the person I want is already there. Right? I just want to be me. There's nothing wrong with going places by myself.
Exactly.
And more women need to do that, and more women need to remind themselves that they're good enough doing it by themselves. They don't need an attachment. They don't need validation.
Yes. 100% agree.
Yeah, we just need to do that. Anyway, thank you very, very much, Yvonne. It was fantastic you sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
you know, it was just really wonderful. The reminder of women, we need to be empowered. There's nothing wrong with doing things for you by yourself, reminding yourself of your beauty, celebrate you and celebrate life. Every day I do a quote, and you know, in the part of the quote, I remind us to celebrate yourself and celebrate your beauty. It is so important that you celebrate. No one is going to celebrate you, you know, trust me on that. They're too busy, you know, celebrating themselves to think about celebrating you. You need to celebrate yourself, women.
100% agree with that. 100%.
You know. Anyway, women, oh, sorry, it's not only women on the show. Sorry, people. Anyway, people, thank you very much for listening. And if any of you, any female, sorry, this is for female here, any woman want to come and share their empowerment journey with us as to what are the triggers that trigger them to become even more empowered, come and share it with us, because a lot of women would learn from that, because a lot of women out there don't feel that they're good enough. So we need to remind them that they're good enough exactly as they are. They don't need validation. You already have everything you need, and everything you need right now is here with you. So you just need to deep down and find it and celebrate you. Thank you very much, Yvonne, again for coming and share your journey. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, people. And you guys are going to see me on Friday with another home education where I think it's a couple, I'm not too sure, will be sharing the journey with us. Remember, there's alternative to the traditional education. You don't have to send your child to the traditional education if it's not working for you or your child. Your child could be educated by you being the educator, because you as carer or parents are the best educator for your children. Don't doubt yourself. Anyway, guys, take care, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys on Friday.
Thank you.